Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Adobo and Avocados, where two of us, Filipino born Europeans who are also senior developer advocates at Grafana Labs, discuss intersectionality and diversity at work, interview cool people like our guest today, and talk about how to just make the tech industry a more colorful place in general. I'm Nicole van der Hoeven.
Hello, my name is Marie Cruz. Today I'm gonna be Nicole's sidekick.
And today we also have over there our friend Lina Zubyte. Is it
Wow, that was a
Zubite
good
or okay,
pronunciation.
okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Hi, everyone. My name is Lina Zubyte.
Amazing.
Welcome to the podcast. We're happy to have you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too.
So Lina and I actually met at Eurostar. We were both speaking, and she was speaking right after me, like in the same hall, in the same room. And I had a problem getting a technical issue. I couldn't do like this demo that I wanted to do. And Lina was like, I'm sorry for you, but I also need to try to see if mine works.
Yeah.
It was so relatable.
I haven't met or even spoken like with Lina before, but before we went to record this, I was saying to Lina that I know you. Like I've seen your work. You're very active in the testing community, but it's just one of those things where like we just haven't really said hi, or we haven't really had the opportunity to have a chat. So it's really amazing that you've agreed to be a guest with us today, because yes, now I can finally meet you, and then hopefully meet you as well in person.
Thank you. I think, yeah, it's really awkward because you know the person, but you don't know them. And then
Yeah.
both of the people know each other. And it's sort of
Yeah.
awkward to say hello because you feel like you know each other for so long. And then you feel like you're the stalker or you're the creep because I know you, but you
No.
don't know me. So it's always
Yeah.
interesting. But I think we learned with Marie that you should just say hello because likely we know
Yeah.
each other and that person knows you as well. So be nice to each other.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself, Linda. Where are you based? What do you do for work and for fun?
Sure. So currently, I'm actually self-employed or freelancer. Uh, I work at the HS2, which is a healthcare system. That's my project right now. I'm extremely excited to work at something that has such a meaningful mission because we're helping countries around the world, especially less developed countries that are so different than us. It's such a humbling experience to learn how people are using the product where, for example, there could be a power cut in the middle of the day and we're so privileged. So this project is such a blessing. I'm so happy to get to work with people from all over the world on something that's so meaningful. I am based in Berlin, but I am about to move. So if it's a little bit echoey, it's because I'm getting rid of my things, which is also related to the topic we want to talk
Minimalism.
about. Yeah.
I thought that's
Um,
just how you live all the time.
yeah. I mean, I still have things, And
What? You can't
currently,
be a minimalist and have things.
absolutely, yes. Whatever sparks joy. So currently, I'm in Berlin, Germany. When you move here, you usually move to a completely empty apartment, even without a kitchen. So
Mm.
this is my challenge this month to get away from things and give them to someone else who may love it as much as I did. And I'm moving officially to my home country, Lithuania, after multiple years of living abroad. So I'm very excited about that. And when it comes to my personal life, I love people. I think that's the one thing that I really, really like. I like stories. I like getting to know them. I like connecting people. I like inspiring people. I like just having quality time with people, be it just getting a coffee or taking a walk with someone. I always feel very recharged and excited about it.
Aw. How
Oh,
long
that's
how long
awesome.
have you been living in Berlin, Lina? And what made you decide to come back to your home country, which is Lithuania?
Oh, deep questions. I like
We love to ask the deep
yeah.
questions.
Um, so I lived here for over 5 years now. I moved here for work, and then the pandemic hit as well, which was a little bit unfortunate. What made me move back? It's funny because I think when I moved abroad, I maybe did not appreciate Lithuania as much, or my home country. And now I keep on saying that maybe I needed to move abroad in order to appreciate it,
Hmm.
because I miss it. I miss the culture, I miss the language, I miss, I don't know, even the bad weather. I miss it. It's worse than in Berlin.
It was
Um,
pretty cold.
yeah, it's really cool. So we were actually in Vilnius with Nicole last week, I think,
Mm.
and it was really freezing. I was not prepared for that. But it's just, where you feel more like you belong. And I think
Mm.
first I was chasing career. So this
Yeah.
is maybe like a very vulnerable share from my side. And I was like, work, and then I get this job. And then I moved countries because of that. And then
Yeah.
after a while, I was like, okay, this is here. I have this job, I have this career, what now? And I was like, but it's community. And we spoke to Marie as well about the importance of community, of having a support network and everything. And I was like, I was so concentrated on that I did not really work on this part. And now I'm like, okay, I want you, start from scratch and work
Mm.
on community. And I'm excited about that. So I'm grateful actually to give this almost second chance to my home country and come back excited and recharged and with experience from different countries.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Marie and I can both relate to being away from home and then also kind of both wanting to be integrated with where you are, like the society around you, but also feeling other because
Mm.
we are different, we're not really just a product of where we are. We're not just a product of where we were born. It's, somewhere in the middle. And that's actually kind of why we named this podcast the way that we did, avocados, because that's what that's like an affectionate term for developer advocates. But adobo is actually a Philippine dish. And it looks like this. Adobo is like a way of cooking something rather than the dish itself. So it could be pork, it could be chicken. The idea is that it's whatever is in your fridge. You cook it a certain way with vinegar and a bunch of spices. And for a lot of Filipinos, it's something that we associate with home. So, what do you do, Lina? Or what do you eat or cook or do or anything that helps you stay connected to home, whatever that means for you?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this and I was like, I don't think it's a dish,
Mm.
because I love to eat. I love different cuisines, but there's no one particular dish, even though we're big on potatoes. But I'm not very big on potatoes. Potatoes are good, though. I actually like really a question, what's your favorite vegetable? So think about that. Maybe you have one. Um, but for me, it's not a potato, it's maybe eggplant, I would say. And some
Ah,
people say it's controversial because they're like, eggplant is gross, that's in the bottom of my list. And
No,
I'm
I
like,
like eggplant.
same. You can
I
cook it in
like
so
it.
many different ways. You can make such nice dips. You can grill it. I mean, so eggplant is getting bad rep for no reason.
Yeah.
But I was thinking it's not food for me. I think for me, it's nature, it's trees, it's a forest. Maybe it's a forest. If I had to think of one thing, I would say it's a forest. It's a very like Lithuanian kind of thing, because I think in Lithuania we were also the last country to accept Christianity in Europe, and we have very strong pagan roots, which
Mm.
are appreciating nature, appreciating the world we live in. And it's so ingrained in us that a lot of friends I have as well in Lithuania, they're like, yeah, we just want to escape the city. We just want to go to the forest. They even do forest therapy, I think they call it. So where they just go in silence and just explore the forest. So for me, it's a forest.
What
Yeah.
about you, Marie? Because for those who are watching us
Yeah.
now, we actually were talking just before this, and Lena asked us something that we've never been asked. What is our adobo?
I know.
Yeah, I'd
It
love to
sounds
hear
weird,
that, both of
but
you.
Marie and I've never answered it.
Yeah. I have two, and it's food related. But the first one is, so we have a dish called Bicol Express, and it's typically pork. But you can also use other meat dishes. But it's cooked with lots and lots of coconut and lots of chilies, and that really reminds me of home. And then the other one is, we have a dish called mechado, but the way my family cooks mechado is very different from the typical mechado. So mechado would have lots of tomatoes, potatoes, vegetable, but we just like it with meat, and that's it. Meat and the tomato base sauce. So I still have to really learn the recipe, because like my mom does it, and then, for example, if you ask your mom like, how do you make this, and then you ask for the recipe, and like she doesn't really know the actual measurements, because she just like measures it, like, because this is how she knows it. But then when I ask her, okay, but how much tomato or how much like soy sauce should I put, she's like, just, just maybe like eyeball it, but then it's not really an actual measurement. So I still have to learn how to cook it. But that's mine. What about you, Nicole? What is your adobo?
Well, first, I'm not. I really love food. My answer is not food, but I still want to show off some food that made me feel at home this week, because Lina and I were in Vilnius, Lithuania for TestCon Europe. We both spoke at that, and as soon as I got home, my husband took me out for dinner, and this is what we had. This is from a Persian restaurant. It's like a kind of snack plate with lots of lots of dips, and then we had like the meat as well, and we shared everything. So that definitely made me feel at home. But if I'm just thinking about other non-food related things, playing D&D. I
Mm,
know it's silly, but no matter where I am in the world, because I travel, I love to travel for work and for personal reasons. But whenever I'm away, the food changes, even the people change sometimes. And
Yeah.
so that weekly Dungeons and Dragons group, where it's the same group of people and we play online, it really grounds me, and I don't miss it for anything. Like, I miss the speaker dinner in TestCon for that.
yeah.
Well, I think it's really important to have rituals, right? And
Mm,
these regular things that
Exactly.
ground us and give us some kind of safety,
yeah.
and comfort. It feels
Yeah.
like a warm hug, right? To have something like this.
Yeah. So tell us, Lina, how did you get from Lithuania and its forests and its dumplings to the tech world in Berlin, or were you
Right.
already in tech in Lithuania?
So I actually studied mathematics when I was at university, and then I went to career fair, and some company had these logical tasks to solve, like an exercise, and I was quite a big nerd on these. I just loved problem solving. They had these out of the box exercises. Little did I know that it was for the tester role. So, what this company was looking for was to hire some testers. And actually, I ended up working there and I got an internship there and I started my career in a company in Lithuania. But before that, I also spent a year abroad in Sweden, which a little bit triggered my wanderlust. So I was like, ooh, I would love to live abroad. I came back and then I was like, ooh, this is too small. And I'm a millennial. I want to make an impact. I want to change the world. So then I was like, oh, what should I do? And I was involved with TEDx Vilnius, so TED Talks and volunteering. And I was like, oh, I'm really busy. And the way I remember is that on LinkedIn, I saw a flashy banner saying, make an impact, join this company. I do not think flashy banners
Did it
exist, to
have
be
your
honest.
name on it or
I'm
something?
like, did I
Yeah.
dream this? But I found a job ad for a tech startup in Budapest, in Hungary.
Mm.
At that time, I didn't travel much. I was in my early 20s and I've never even been to Budapest, but I applied there and they accepted me. So I ended up moving on my own to the country I've never even visited. Right now, I would think it's a little bit fishy that they didn't even fly me over, for the interview. They just gave me an offer and they said, okay, your boss will meet you at the airport. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
up to
happened.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. But then I was just excited for the opportunity and I took that job offer. And it was, in a sense, changing the view on QA that I had. I had a very traditional start and even
Mm.
having test plans, which I've written in Excel, and you just mark, you click here, verify that this happens, and then mark big pass or fail for that. And from there, I went to a team that was completely not siloed. I was the first QA they had. I had to spread awareness on testing, and I started automating. And my code was reviewed by a Java developer with 8 years of experience. So I got 30 comments on my
Oh,
pull request. I was so excited it works, I was like,
Yeah.
but it works, it clicks through things. And they were like, yeah, but your old conventions are wrong. Everything is wrong. But as painful as it was at that moment, it was so rewarding. I made friends for life. I could collaborate with different departments. And the way I saw QA really switched because I was like,
Mm.
wow, like we can do so many more things. We can collaborate with product, we can collaborate with development, we can prevent issues, not only detect them by talking to each other, by trying to make sure that we're not missing certain things. And I fell in love with data there because it was a fashion product that would integrate to fashion websites and we had huge traffic. So we had millions of product pages to check. You cannot do it manually. So what we
Mhm.
had to do is we had to build dashboards and observe the behavior. So I fell in love with that. That was my jam. I loved it so much. And then later on, I was like starting to share my experience at conferences. And I actually got a cold in Ireland and I couldn't speak. And I always say that some people are like sliding doors because you meet them and they change your life, even though it's like a very brief moment. And likely it's many people in our lives, changed our lives and made us be here. And in that conference, the organizer was half Lithuanian, which is so rare. We're 3 million people in the world. And she really wanted to practice Lithuanian because she lived in Slovenia and her father was Lithuanian. She saw me sitting alone drinking tea, and I had so many of mini jars of honey around me because the hotel was so fancy. They would just give you like a little mini jar, and I was like Winnie the Pooh, in the corner with my jars and trying not to talk to people in networking event because next day I had to speak and my voice was gone.
Mhm.
And this woman, she was like, "No, you don't sit here alone." And she was like, "You will meet another speaker, and you two can talk." And the other speaker actually was Finn Lorbeer. So Nicole may know him from the conference because we were at TaskCon together. He was a keynote speaker. And we just spoke about QA and the way we see it. And it was like, wow, we don't see it as a box, as just testing column. We see it as such a collaborative role. I was so inspired. I was like, wow, there exists a company that sees it that way. And he was like, yeah, just move to Germany. I was like, no, I don't like Germany. I'm not going to move there. And he was like, what? But then I slept on it and I was like, I heard Berlin is different. So I'll move there. And I ended up moving there for ThoughtWorks, for the consultancy. So I worked there for a while.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I met some amazing people. I grew a lot because it also it has very modern approach, I would say, of the QA. And now I worked as well at Doodle before my current gig, before going to self-employment. So yeah, a long story, but there were lots of people involved and countries and random things like getting a cold that got me to be here.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I think we should put that on the thumbnail.
Yeah.
I'm here because I got a cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting a cold started me in testing.
If there's like just one, like, well, a couple of things that I would like to comment on, because I think all of us experience QA the very traditional way. So, it's such a breath of fresh air that now we're seeing it in a completely different manner. Because, like you, Lina, when I first started, people were writing like really long pages of test strategies that people aren't gonna read, really detailed test plans that, again, not a lot of people will read. And the way we were doing testing before was, okay, we've written all our tests in a spreadsheet. We don't even collaborate with the developers. They were all sitting like different floors, like we're not even like talking with them. And then all we need to do is like wait for the code to be deployed, and then when it's there, that's it, we're gonna run our test cases. So I remember as well when I first wrote my automated tests, and then working with this company where, oh my gosh, developers are reviewing my code and they're adding comments like, oh, maybe it will be better if you do it this way, because test automation is a development activity. It should receive the same code standards like when you're writing application code. Just because it's not something that we see in production doesn't mean that we shouldn't handle it the same care, because I think it should really follow the same love, the same like test patterns, like the same standards as if you are writing a development code. So it's really great that now, I think we mentioned this, Nicole, on like previous episodes, that testing or quality, it's more of like an attitude rather than a role, because everyone can have the same view of like testing, especially now that that it should be a team responsibility. So we shouldn't be dividing people that, hey, you're a tester, you should only work in terms of doing this, or you're a developer, you shouldn't test. I think it should be more of a quality effort, like a team effort, and everyone should really be helping improve the quality of your application. So really great that that's also the experience that you've had.
Yeah, I do think that it's a mindset for sure. Even though still so many companies are not doing it this way. And recently I've read an actually pretty old article from year 2000 by Elizabeth Hendrickson, who wrote Explore It. And this article is called More Testing, Better Quality, or like Worse Quality.
Mm.
Basically, we assume that the more we test, the better the quality will be, but that's not the truth. And in
Mhm.
that article, she does talk about the fact how a company got more testers and actually the quality went worse because
Yeah.
developers would not test themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes even removing the testing column could help us to deliver better quality because we're more accountable. We're not thinking,
Mhm.
okay, now I did my part, I'll just throw it to Marie and Marie will do it. And then Marie will be my gatekeeper, right? I hate
Yeah.
this term, gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And then some people still speak like that these days, right? So
Yeah.
there's lots of companies that don't have this attitude. And it's quite frustrating sometimes because it's not helpful. It's not helpful to anyone, but we still hear it, which is a little bit sad. So even in testing conferences, there are different talks, and sometimes some people relate more with that because this modern quality approach, it's more difficult. It's more difficult to grasp. It's not as tangible and understandable as, here's your task and you do it and that's it.
Yeah.
So I really like that you said that there's this, I guess there's a misconception that if you kind of throw more effort into a problem or more testers at a problem or just do more of everything, that the quality will also improve. But that's not always the case. And in fact, a lot of times it's not the case. And it also has this inverse relationship where after a certain point it's like marginal increases, and then at a certain point it actually starts to decrease in the quality. It's like too many cooks in a kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really like to talk about what that means to you, because I know that you probably, this is also topical because you're moving, but I know that you're really interested in minimalism. How do you think that relates at all to tech and to testing?
Very good connection. I was thinking about the same. So I actually opened the minimalism definition here, so maybe we can start with this. So if we Google minimalism, we may find a definition which says that minimalism is intentionally promoting the things we most value and removing everything that distracts us from it. It is marked by clarity, purpose, and intentionality. The talk I gave, to sum it up, is actually that it's also high quality products and teams. We are, first of all, promoting the things we value. We're removing the bottlenecks. So we're removing the distraction, and it is all marked with clarity, purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
intentionality. In the world where tech is full of tools and all kinds of frameworks and best practices, which is the worst term in the world, likely,
Yeah.
because it makes you feel inferior. It's, it can be very overwhelming to see the essential things. And in minimalism, all it says is that think about what's important to you. I
Mm-hmm.
think in our tech world is the same. If we break through from this traditional manual tester where I just do my things and we more look, okay, why did this issue happen? That could be the first step, right? I see bug as a symptom. We missed something somewhere. Why did it happen? Didn't we have an automated check? Didn't we have a requirement for that? Maybe we assumed something wrongly. Let's talk about it. Let's learn from that. And when we dig deeper, very often as QAs, if we start to break away from our, I'm just testing and that's it, then you're like, okay, so why are they showing up? And then you start digging and you realize that you open some kind of worms, that actually it's some company's problem that we did not invest in unit tests, for example. This is much harder than to say like we didn't test enough, because for us like to blame something or say, oh yeah, you didn't test it, that's why there's a bug. But it is going to the essence of the problem, because most of the problems are systematic ones. They're people problems. They're not really a tool or even certain category of problems. So I think minimalism has so many important lessons here that we can learn. Even this decluttering or having less of things around us helps us to find things easier, right? If you have just a few things, you know where what is. If you're hoarding everything, you're like, I have no idea. And also, it adds so much of frustration sometimes. An example here could be also monitoring systems, for example. Many teams are drowning in noise. They have lots of alerts, lots of logs. They don't know what's important to them. But when you have the mission clear, this clarity and purpose, you can also understand why your work relates to this company. It's inspiring, it's empowering, and also you can react when something bad happens, right? Because you're not like trying to find something in this huge pile of noise and you know what's going on. So there's lots of ideas in minimalism that I think we can get inspired in the tech world, especially when we break away from certain roles or boxes that we put ourselves into.
Yeah. That's a really um like a really great way to put it, because even with writing automated tests that it's not really providing value, or tests that are always failing but it's different reasons, and then rather than deleting it, like most of the time, like with previous experiences, we tend to just comment it and then leave it there with the hopes that, okay, we're gonna fix it in,
You will need it in the future.
yeah, oh, it's gonna be needed, like this test is very important, but then 3 months after, 6 months after, the test is still there and no one's really working in terms of improving that test. So if it's not giving you any value, like why are you holding into it? Like just delete that. And similar with what you said with deleting that test column, because that just enforces that someone needs to check your code. And I'm not saying that's not um something that we shouldn't do, but it's like, if you are relying on someone who will gatekeep, or someone who will always check your code, that really gives you with this lesser confidence that, okay, but if this person is going to be doing the same checks that maybe I could do, why can't I do it? Or why can't someone from like the development team, like why can't they help it? Like, why do we always have to rely like on this single person? So it's really great that minimal, like the principles of minimalism, we can also apply it even in our jobs as software testers.
I
I
also
think there are
would.
a few. Go on,
Uh,
Lina.
oh, sure. Thanks. I also think of testing interviews. I don't know if you've ever like interviewed
Hmm.
a QA, because one question I ask sometimes is how much testing is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And when a person tells there's never enough of testing, you just continue testing all the time. I'm like, do you? Because you shouldn't, like, you have to make sacrifices, you have to make trade-offs, you have to understand when maybe it doesn't make sense for you to implement this huge end-to-end test suite, which will
Mm-hmm.
run for 3 hours, and you will invest a month doing that, while you could actually write more unit tests, for example. But
Yeah.
sometimes we're scared to not be useful, and to add to this, like, why do we comment this test out? Because we put in effort. This is the sunk
Yeah.
cost fallacy. We actually like want to hold on to this, right? I invested so much of time and effort, like how can it just go away? Like, if I'm
Yeah.
building this end-to-end suite and then someone comes and says this is useless, I'm like, what? So this is why also this is letting go of control a little bit, which is hard mentally and
Yeah.
psychologically, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Nicole, what
I
you would
really,
say? Yeah.
yeah. There's so much that I want to mention from what you said. When you said, you just keep testing, there's never enough testing, and I thought that is a sure a sure recipe for burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us actually do feel like that it's never actually enough. And I think that our roles as testers really really kind of reframes or makes us reframe the way that we see the world in terms of imperfections. We are predisposed to seeing the things that are wrong, and that has emotional implications, because what about the things that are right? Or what about changing our measurement for what is wrong or right in the first place? I don't know if either of you has heard of wabi sabi. I think it's like a Japanese thing, which I love so much. Ida wabi sabi is like a worldview. It's kind of a philosophy, and it's all about accepting the impermanence, the kind of transience, but also imperfections of things, and not just accepting them, but steering into it and understanding that sometimes beauty is found in the imperfections. And as testers, we can look at things in a very clear cut way that it either the test case passed or it failed. And when you think about when you approach the world and people in that black and white view, it really doesn't allow for much nuance or empathy.
I think we're all recovering perfectionists. And we get into this role because we have attention for detail. We can spot these imperfections and we're proud of that. But it really soaks into our personal lives as well. And it does more damage than good. There's a book, 4,000 Weeks, about
I
time
love it.
management.
Yeah.
I love that book as well. A funny story is that there's one chapter at the end about gratitude, and I was sitting in a cafe and reading it, and then I was like, "Oh, I should write this author about gratitude because I'm grateful for that." And I found an envelope in the cafe which said, "Take me." And then I opened it, and it had a message: "You are doing well enough." You are good enough.
Oh.
And I was like, and this is exactly the thing,
Wow.
right? That, and then I sent it to the author and he replied, but this book says,
Oh!
yeah, it's so inspiring. Life is beautiful. Um,
Yeah.
and he answered, he said, wow, I got shivers about this. But in that book, he's talking that we have a limited amount of weeks in on average 4,000 weeks. That's not that much, right? And a lot
Yeah.
has passed and we don't know how many more we have. But we go into this productivity trap. I will answer all my emails and then it will be clean, right? But it's not about that. It's more about choosing what matters to you. Because if you answer all those emails, you will get the replies. And then you will get into the spiral of productivity and trying to do everything. And as QA, sometimes it's like, oh, it's one pixel off. Does it even
Mhm.
matter? I think
Yeah.
the first start for me, looking into what matters or not, was working with monitoring and trying to quantify the impact of the bugs I would find. And sometimes I realize it's only like two people that are facing it. As serious as that bug looked in my head, is it
Yeah.
that serious? It's not. And we want to give something useful to people, sure, but there are always trade-offs and I cannot do everything. And if I am in this kind of mindset, then it definitely is a burnout, as you said. Like,
Yeah.
if I want to do everything and say yes to everything, I cannot do it. But then if I say no to some things, I also can show up better in others. So this is also about this less is more and choosing what is essential to you, and maybe even like caring more about people we work with, because people are the main thing here. And sometimes realizing that, yeah, it doesn't matter that if we fix this bug, maybe like this developer is really burnt out, why am I pushing this extra thing on them? And it doesn't really,
Yeah.
like, no, nothing will happen if this is not fixed. It's like, maybe it's not a payment system with a critical thing. And even if we are having outages or something, I think it's the whole company's kind of responsibility to not put it on people as, oh yeah, you should work overtime. I hate this, right? Because we all could work overtime, but it's not helpful. We need rest, we need fun, we need all kinds of things to make us excited and happy to show up at work. So I think, yeah, this culture of productivity and everything, like, let's do everything, or testing never stops. No, like, sure, you will find issues all the time, but
Mhm.
you have to have boundaries and you have to ask yourself what matters to you and what choices you want to make with your life and with your work. Because you can get stuck on some little thing that doesn't really matter and you're just going to waste your energy. And it's sad. It won't be perfect. It's sad. There's no perfect software, right? It's just an illusion. And we break these illusions. And I think testing is information, right? The more testing you do, you have more information, but you also have to choose what kind of testing you want to do, what kind of information you need here, and have boundaries. Wow, that's a beautiful word to add here.
No, I
Wow.
love that you mentioned boundaries because I'm a big fan of boundaries, but also it reminds me that when we think of, happiness or independence or things like that, we think of something that's totally open. But anyone who's been in a project that hasn't been properly scoped knows that when you go in there and then people are like, well, I don't know, we're going to build, we could build anything. There's no real, limit. It sounds nice. It sounds like, oh, we can do anything. And what do you end up doing? Almost nothing, because people get pulled off into many different things, or you get into analysis paralysis. And
Yeah.
it's actually the boundaries, it's actually the reduction of scope that allows you to focus on that thing. And I think this is it's a very fundamental part of human nature. It's kind of like games when we play, like if it's a basketball game, let's say, if the goal were actually just to put a ball into the basket, we would just skip to that. That's not the goal. We have created as humans this intricate set of rules. You can't be holding the ball for this much time, otherwise it's traveling while you're walking. You can't push each other, you can't do this. We are applying restrictions because intuitively we understand something isn't comprehensible and also something isn't fun unless there are restrictions. And it's only when we have the restrictions that we can sit down and watch the game and actually be engrossed in it and involved in the rules and whether or not people are breaking them. And that's a very I think that's a paradoxical thing, an ironic thing about minimalism, that the restrictions actually help you do your job better and be more free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they say even the clothing choices, right? Like why Mark Zuckerberg, love him, hate him,
Yeah.
has only a certain set of clothes because it reduces the amount of choices you have to make during your day. You wake up, you pick it up, and in a sense, if you have a messy closet and then you want to go somewhere, it's so frustrating. I've been there so many times and I'm like, I want to look nice. I don't have anything nice. Then you go through everything and you're like, oh, I found something, but why do I have all these things? They just bother me. It's the same with work. If we have
Yeah.
so many things that distract us, they can cause lots of frustration. I really like that you mentioned actually the rules and restrictions, which is that sometimes having less choice can help us. And we may think, oh, we are so agile, we want just to work in certain ways, right? But sure, but there are some structures that can help us. There are some processes that could make it easier because we don't need to think about it. Like have a regular retrospective, for example. People are like, why do I have a regular retrospective? Yeah, but because you hate it so much because you're not speaking honestly, likely. Like there are different problems in your team why you don't like it. But maybe some things in the teams can be there as some kind of rituals, right? Rituals, I guess, is another thing, right? Maybe this session of a game or some team building thing that we have every month. We go for a dinner as a team, right? And then it's some kind of ritual that we have that helps us to have certain systems in place, but they are not it's not chaos, it's not anarchy. We need some kind of posts in our life, right, to keep us balanced a little bit.
Yeah.
Even anarchists need some rules and boundaries sometimes.
Yeah. I really love the whole concept around, yeah, like everything. I think with life, like really everything should be enjoyed in moderation. Like too much of one thing is really not good for you. And one example that I can think of is, for example, with the use of BDD frameworks like Cucumber. One of my pet peeve is using it as a tool, but then not really working in a behavior driven development type of way. And then um, having that sort of view that if you have Cucumber integrated, then you already, that you and your team are already working in a specific way of working that really encompasses this whole behavior driven development. That is something that I've seen in different projects that I work at. And then when I ask them, well, are business analysts, or is it just used by yourself, or is it actually being read by the other team members? Are you actually communicating properly? Because there's this misconception that once you have Cucumber integrated, then you're already working in a BDD type of way of working, but it's really not the case. And the additional complexity of that, there's additional layer that, yeah, you need to have the feature files created, you need to have the step definitions map. That really takes away the simplicity of, for example, writing the first automated test. Like you're over engineering it, you're making sure that the framework is there rather than making sure that the value of having this test, it's really catching some specific issue, or making sure that this bug doesn't really um, happen in production again. But you're so focused in trying to make sure that the framework is in place rather than thinking of what the actual value is. So that's another example where minimalism can help.
And I also think that in the same way that Marie, you were saying that just because you apply the rituals doesn't mean that you are actually developing in a behavior driven way. I think a lot of people, might have a stand up and call that agile. It's not about the names, it's not about the rituals themselves, it's about the meaning behind them. And I think we can look at the Agile manifesto, which is kind of like the Bible for for agile, for working in an agile way. And it talks about the things that are valued, but it also indicates a prioritization, in that at the end here it says, while there's value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. So it's not that, I think people don't see this part, and then they just see that none of the things on the right are valuable, and they skip documentation, for example, or they don't have a plan, or they don't have processes or tools. That's not actually what Agile is, but it is about being intentional about prioritizing some things over others.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny actually, when I started my career in testing, after like a year or something, on LinkedIn, someone added agile methodologies that they recommend me that I know something about it. At that point, I was like, "What is that? I don't know what you mean with this, but I guess I can do it." Of course, we had Scrum, we had like certain meetings, but were we agile? Did I know about Agile Manifesto? Likely not. I think it took me a few years to go to the Agile Manifesto. What about you? Have you heard about, when did you learn about Agile Manifesto in your career?
Not early on. Like I think when I moved to a more consultant role and I was really changing my views about the way I work, I still really haven't heard about the Agile Manifesto. And to be completely transparent, when I started to be more active in the testing community, which was 2020, that's when I really read that, oh yeah, it's actually like there's actually a name to it, but it's something that I've believed that it's important, but then I didn't know that there was actually an entire name, like an entire manifesto like dedicated to it. So there's that sense of feeling that, oh yeah, like this is reflected of what I've been trying to advocate on like previous projects. I just didn't know that that was the actual name for it.
Yeah, I think Agile is one of those things like minimalism that is really taken in the wrong way and it has become a buzzword.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't want to buy that thing because I'm a minimalist. Well, no, minimalism isn't just about what you don't choose, it's also about what you do choose. And that's
Yeah.
why I like the Agile Manifesto, because it's saying it's not just remove everything, it's saying here are the things that we should have instead or that we should value more.
Exactly. And the thing is, when some people hear agile, it's like, oh no, what's happening here? Who said this? Because they imagine these agile coaches that they work with who were terrible. I guess all of us have worked with someone who, I don't know, I work once with this person. I hope this person is not listening. If they are, I'm so sorry, but I think you're okay person, but just this thing is not okay.
Oh,
Like
wow.
you talk to them and then they just randomly start sharing their screen about Kanban University and a certain methodology that we should apply here. Like,
Yeah.
what is going on? Why do we do this? Some things became a business. There are so many courses and certain websites about certain agile technique, which is the best, of course. You shouldn't push this without understanding why you're using it at all. And when we speak about Agile Manifesto, it was the anarchists of software development that created it. Of course, they were white men, but that's another conversation. But they were fed up with these long processes then. They were mostly proponents, because that's a word, right, of
Yep.
extreme programming. Extreme
Mm.
programming is still here nowadays and not many people do it. And this manifesto, it does not state Scrum, it does not state Jira, it does not state a certain tool. It just says, hey, value people more than certain process or tool, and value working software over this documentation. Don't be so stuck on things, be more adaptable somehow. And many of us haven't even heard about it. Like I haven't heard about it for first years that I was working in testing, and I had recommendation for agile methodologies and I had no idea what it means at all. And only digging deeper and understanding, I was like, okay, agile is actually many things. It depends on your context, what you're working on, and it's just some kind of ground contract or rules. It's a reminder. It's not an instruction how to do it best. No, it's
Yeah.
just be a little bit flexible with the way you work.
Yeah.
And also with the way that you relate to people, because we talk a lot about what it means to test in an agile way or develop in an agile way, or how to release things iteratively, shipping early and often. But we never talk about agile relationships. What does it mean to look at someone and not just see, oh, well, you're just a tester. You can't do this, you can't do that. Or even looking at ourselves like that. You know, I think we don't talk enough in the industry about what it means to be agile in ourselves and allow room for growth in our teams as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if we say it's people, it's much harder than it is, okay, I have my Jira task, can I just do it? It's seeing the person behind it. And I still catch myself up to this day, years later, trying to say that I have, a heart and I see a heart in other person, having judgment sometimes. I may see someone's Jira comment and it's not phrased properly, and I'm like, this person cannot communicate good enough. And then the funniest thing is that life always is like, what are you doing here? Because I went to one event at a company I work in, and there they had something like speed dating, where you get to know this person for a coffee break, basically. And I got matched with exactly one of the developers that I was not a fan of. Based on my Jira interaction, I was like, oh, I'm not sure. But the thing is, we started talking, and I was like, oh my goodness. And first of all, they started, I'm really sorry that my, communication may be like that, because I was on the field. There was like no internet. We were fighting in general that the system would work. And then there was this tiny bug that you were commenting on. And that's why sometimes it would take me a month, to get to it, because there were so
Mhm.
many fires around me and I had tried to manage them. And I feel really bad that I couldn't answer you properly, but I just didn't have the energy. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, and I felt terrible. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And I was like, I don't want to go with this person. And it changed my mind. It really humbled me as well, because I was like, yeah, there's a person behind this Jira ticket or comment. And not everyone communicates the same way, and
Mhm.
it takes time to gain trust and understanding why it's that. And it's hard not to judge. It's so hard. It's so hard not to put everyone in the same box or process and say, oh, yeah, everyone should do that. Why are they not doing that? Why
Yeah.
are they resisting this? This part we sometimes forget. And as QAs, as someone who wants it to be perfect and great, we may even be resentful sometimes, which also is not a good thing. And the more I work in this field, the more I'm like, okay, I guess I'm becoming a better human, I hope, because I'm less likely to recommend a certain tool or process, because it depends on the context and it's
Mm.
people behind it. And for some, this may not work at all. And it's a bad answer for many because we want the best silver bullet ever. It's nice if someone tells us what to do, but then the more we're accountable about our lives, our choices, the more we realize, yeah, there's no such thing. I have to understand my needs, communicate it, and we have to work as a team, which is very hard sometimes because there's different people, different expectations. Communication is hard. We as humans are bad at it. So there's lots of things to have into consideration here.
Yeah. I think this is also why the term best practice is really harmful, and um like recommended is a much better term, because if someone says, okay, here's the best practices in this industry, but then you're not really taking into account the context, you're not taking into account like the skill set and the people that's working in your team. So just changing, for example, your mindset around, okay, maybe this is a best practice, but then wait, do I actually have the right people for this? Do I have the right skills? Maybe we need to um invest first in like the people that we have before adapting to this particular practice. Or maybe, okay, it's a recommended practice instead, and it's something that we'll take into consideration, but at the same time it's not something that's set in stone that, okay, this person has said that this is a best practice, we have to adopt it. Because like you said, it's all dependent on your context and the way you work with your teams. And one thing that I remembered from our episode last week, sorry, not last week, earlier this week with Erin, was during retros, they asked, for example, the emotions, like what people felt during a particular sprint. Because I think most of the time we're just guilty in asking, okay, how did like this particular work task, how did that improve, or how did that like how did we work on this, is there anything that we need to improve on? But then we're not really asking, how were you feeling during this sprint? Did you feel supported? Did you feel that there's some miscommunication, or did you feel that we were working in silos? So I think we should also be focusing in improving those relationships as well, not just the specific workload, but yeah, investing in getting to know the people that you are working with.
This feels very much like steering against this wave that's going in the opposite direction, because I think a lot about tech is about separating people and compartmentalizing. I mean, in programming, there is a kind of a concept that is generally recognized to be a good thing: separation of concerns. And the idea is to modularize everything, break one whole into constituent parts, and programmatically it makes sense. It makes things more modular and reusable, and you can then more flexibly choose which ones hook up to what. This is the foundation of microservices in general. And what a lot of people are finding is that reduces a lot of the context. So it is true, all of those advantages of having things modular, those are still advantages. But also, you both mentioned the word context, and I think that context is what brings everything together. And when there's nobody who's looking at the system as a whole or the team as a whole, then that can be a problem. And it also makes it difficult for individual team members who don't have the same context. Like, this is why it isn't easy sometimes to be a woman in tech. I know this is something that you've spoken about, Lina.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a big conversation on this. It also makes me think that the nicest retros I've been in were a supportive team. Different people saying, "Hey, I really liked how you helped me there, Nicole. I really felt supported there." And it's so much gratitude in these retros. It's so much of love, right? It's so much of different individuals feeling like they belong, like their expertise is needed, because we have different context. We see this thing differently. If I pair with infrastructure developer, I don't have their knowledge at all, but I may have attention for detail. So I may help out not to make typos somewhere, which is great. And another thing I was thinking about when we were talking as well is the fact that sometimes letting go of a certain process or thing, it's hard, because we think always about other people. Because you will let go of your thing. You should let go because it doesn't work here. But when I am suggesting something, I think, oh yeah, I've seen this work in 5 other companies, so this must work here. And sometimes to be like open with myself that it may not work here, and it's okay. And my value is not gone here. I'm still valuable. I'm enough, even if it doesn't work. It's hard to accept sometimes. So we have to sometimes be remind ourselves, individuals over processes and tools, right? And interactions. So we may need to talk to people and understand why they feel a certain way. And yeah, and woman in tech, well, it's another long conversation, I guess. I recently met a girl who is switching from one very different domain, which is fashion, to tech. And she is a developer. She is Ruby on Rails developer. And she said that when she went to a HR event, there were so many of tech bros or HR guys that looked at her and said, convince me. And she's like, yeah, I went to this boot camp. I have this, but I just started. And they were really not trusting her. And they said, you should send us your profile, your like all kinds of projects that you have. And she's like, what I just started. And they like really have this convince me thing. And I think, yeah, being a woman in tech, very often it is, yeah, convince me that you know something, because just because I'm a man, I'm a better programmer, right? I mean, even though like the first programmers were women, but we forget this. And another thing also, like, I don't know why there's this stereotype that a programmer is bad at communication and soft skills. Like that's really harmful from society as well, right? That they're like, if you don't want to talk to people, then maybe learn programming because you won't have to do that. And then we are the ones who carry the weight, right? We're like, okay, I'm like a woman, so like I can understand emotions better, and then I have to talk to those programmers that cannot, talk to most people. I mean, and that's fine, and I can, try to relate with them, but it's again like this weight thing. So I think like there's lots of topics here that are intertwining as well here.
I think as well, like some people might see it as a joke, like especially we see memes around the
Yeah, but in every
developers
joke there's
versus
some truth.
QA. Exactly. And one thing that's very harmful that I see, but then people are thinking it's funny, is this the developer versus QA memes. And
Hate those.
I honestly wish that people would just stop doing that, because that's just reinforcing the silos. That's just reinforcing the divide. And like it's sending a message to people who are new to the industry that that's still how we work. And maybe, yeah, some companies, they still work like that, but we are trying hard to really break that barrier and make sure that it's more of a mindset rather than like different roles. So yeah.
Just
um
to wrap up, Lina, what's something? Sorry, Marie, is there something else you wanted to say?
I was just gonna plug. So I know when this episode is gonna air, Nicole and I will be talking at Agile Testing Days, but we're gonna be talking about a topic that is really close to us. So
Yeah.
it's about intersectionality in tech, because I think there's a lot of experience that we can share, but then it's not really something that we talked about widely. We always talk about like the technical stuff, but we should also talk about the human side of things. So it's great that we're gonna be able to talk about that. We're gonna be given the opportunity to share our stories to the community. So yeah,
It's such
just
an
wanted to
amazing
plug
topic,
that.
by the way. I'm really curious what you're going to talk about, because intersectionality, right? Even though we all are
Yeah.
women in tech,
Yeah,
I'm treated differently as well. Like we are having different experiences.
Yeah.
Even the accents can affect this, right?
yeah,
Like my English may have an accent, and then I'm internalizing this as well. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not as great as a speaker or something. There's so many things that are different as well. So it's not only that all women face this. No, we look different, we are
yeah.
treated different. I have a friend who actually has perfect eyesight, and she wears glasses because she's more convincing to developers than.
God.
And it feels so sad to me. And she says, she's like, oh yeah, but it's fine. It's fine. It works.
Yeah,
I wish I didn't need glasses.
I
It's
know.
such a
I've been
pain.
wearing glasses my entire life.
Me too. It is not fun. But Lina, if you had to give a bit of advice to somebody, to let's say a woman, a young woman who's starting out on the same path as you, what are some things that you would tell her?
I would say community is something I did not think of. And sure, we can be strong, independent women, but I think it's the best strength that we can find, the most empowering feeling we can have if we have other people around us who believe in us, who maybe have gone through a similar thing, and who will not just say, be bold, because that's the advice I got when I started consulting. And it was from a man, right? It said, like, you have it, be bold. I was like, what on earth does that mean? How can I like just be bold, wake up and be bold when I don't feel like it? It's like, what? And I think as women also support other women. Let's not just
Yes.
like, this
Yeah.
is such a simple thing, but maybe like we are concentrated on our careers, we're thinking that we are not enough, we're thinking that all kinds of things, right? Let's support each other in general, like
Yeah.
whatever the gender, whatever the, like, just talk to each other and build some kind of community. And sometimes it will be multiple people. it will be like, maybe with this person I speak about being a woman in tech, maybe with this person I speak about my tech side, maybe with this person I speak about different things, and not expect one person to be everything, right? It's just like having some kind of support network, I think, is essential, because sometimes you may feel alone, you may hear sexist jokes, and you may start normalizing this and may think that, yeah, like this is normal. But then once you start talking to people, they're like, no, it's not normal. And then you start feeling more sane, right? You're not going crazy. So definitely build some kind of support network. I'd say if you don't know where to start, there are some mentoring programs as well. So in Lithuania, there's Women Go Tech, which is for career changers. You also have experts and mentors. There's also mentoring club in Germany. It's a website. It's pro bono mentoring. So you can just talk to whomever you find on this website. So you could try different mentors even and see maybe with someone you connect and you can learn something from them. And yeah, so people likely have faced similar things as you, as unique humans we are, but we have gone through similar things, and pain and happiness and sadness and feeling not belonging in the team. So definitely surround yourself with support and people.
Oh, it was so great to have you on, Lina. I really, everything that you said has really resonated, and I knew when I, after my talk in Eurostar, I could actually enjoy your talk, and I knew that I I wanted to catch up with you, so I'm glad that we did. Thanks
Yeah,
for
thank
coming
you so
on.
much, Lina. Yeah, it's been really great chatting with you today.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting. I'm sure we could chat even more. So
Yeah.
thanks for the
Yes,
opportunity.
definitely. So, if anyone wants to learn more about Lina, and because there's a lot of things that you do that we didn't get to cover, check out qualitybits.tech. I'll leave a link in the description below as well. And Lina has a podcast, and it's called
Mm.
Quality Bits. So it's basically that slash podcast. So check that out. There might be some interesting guests on in the future that you might
Mm.
recognize.
Is it you?
Yeah, it is. We already recorded it. And also, as Marie mentioned earlier, this episode is pre recorded, unlike usual, because Marie and I are, by the time that you're watching this, we are at Agile Testing Days. If you are there in Berlin, I mean, in Potsdam,
Yeah.
our talk is tomorrow, Thursday, at 2:45 p.m., room F2.
Yeah.
So
I'll
see you
I'll
there.
also plug my individual talk. So I'm gonna be talking about the psychology of waiting and how that's related to web performance. That's gonna be on Wednesday, but I think it's around 4 p.m. I think I have to double check the schedule. But yeah, if you're interested to know why we don't like to wait, what is the difference between objective and perceived performance, then yeah, I'm gonna be talking about the human side of performance testing.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and have a good week. See you
Thank
next
you
week.
all. Bye bye.